Thank you so very much for showing up for our first town hall meeting on inclusive education. We're happy to see the crowd that we have here this evening. So just to do a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Emergency exits are to both doors on your left or right. The bathrooms are to the right of me, your left. And if you go through these doors and turn to the left, the first bathroom you come to is the female bathroom. The fourth bathroom is the disabled bathroom, and the fifth bathroom is the male bathroom. Do you need me to repeat that? First bathroom is the female bathroom, the fourth bathroom is the disabled bathroom, and the fifth bathroom is the male bathroom. Ready? Thanks again, and I hope we have a lively discussion here this evening. If everyone could just stand for the anthem.
Thank you, Asha, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. My name is Stephen Savory, and I'm the head of the Skills for the Future 2 program at the Ministry of Education. And with me, I have an esteemed panel that will be discussing with us tonight the intricacies surrounding the draft inclusive education policy document. And we will want to be able to invite your comments, your queries, and your questions as we go forward. So let me just introduce the members of the table. And starting to my immediate left, we have the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Educational Transformation, Ms. Kimbell. Next to her is the Chief Education Officer for the Ministry of Educational Transformation, Dr. Ramona Bradshaw. And on my far left is our presenter, consultant, inclusive education expert, and main event presenter, Dr. Janice Gibbs. At this time, I'd like to ask P.S. Bell to give the formal welcome to you as we start this evening's proceedings. P.S. Bell?
Good evening, everyone. This evening, it is with great pleasure that I welcome you to this important stakeholder engagement session on the inclusive education policy. Today marks a significant step forward in our collective journey towards building an educational system that truly leaves no one behind. Inclusive education is not just a policy goal, it is a moral imperative. It is about recognizing the diverse needs of all learners, embracing differences, and ensuring that every child, regardless of their ability, their background, or circumstance, has access to quality education in a supportive and enabling environment. Now, for those of you who would have been following the stakeholder sessions that we had last year in relation to education transformation, you would know that inclusive education is one of those significant pillars of educational transformation. And in order for us to really have a policy and a framework that is really reflective of the needs of all of our stakeholders, it is very important that we have sessions like these where we can hear from you, we can engage, and we can also, because all of that is taken into consideration as we develop said policy. So your presence here reflects a shared commitment to equity, dignity, and opportunity for all. As stakeholders, whether you are educators, parents, advocates, your insights and your experiences and your voices are all vital. This engagement is not just about consultation, it is about co-creation because we want to hear from you. Together, we will shape a policy that is informed, inclusive, and impactful. So I want for us to approach today's discussions with open minds. I want us to be collaborative and to also have a shared vision of a more inclusive future. So I encourage each of you to speak freely, to listen deeply, and to contribute meaningfully to this exercise. So I want to thank you once again for coming out this afternoon, for being here, and for allowing this session to be productive and inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you, P.S. Bell. Before we move on, I'd like to recognize my colleague and friend in the audience, Dr. Paul Murphy. Dr. Murphy, pleasure to see you again. And Dr. Murphy heads up the Education Transformation Agenda for the ministry, and we are sure that as we go forward, you will see more of him as we go forward. Before I ask Dr. Ramona Archer-Bradshaw, our Chief Education Officer, to speak, I just want to give you a 1 or 2 minute introduction to the Skills for the Future program here at the Ministry of Educational Transformation. The Skills for the Future 2 program is a project of the Barbados government and the Ministry of Educational Transformation and the Inter-American Development Bank. And we are focused on education transformation in 4 areas, of which inclusive education is one of them. The other 3 focuses on the national curriculum review and modernization, also on rehabilitation and digitization of a number of schools, primary schools, and we are also involved in the revamping of the education management information systems of the Ministry of Educational Transformation. So those are the 4 areas that we are focusing on as part of the education transformation agenda. So I'd just like to mention those to you before we move on. So at this time, I'd like to invite our Chief Education Officer, Dr. Ramona Archer-Bradshaw, to speak to you as we go forward on the topic.
Thank you very much, Stephen. A blessed good evening to each and every one of you. It is my absolute pleasure to be here because it demonstrates, as PS said, that we are indeed listening to you. Over the past 2.5 years, we've been engaging in discussion about what we want to see within our education system. And we spoke about the acronym FIRM, where we want to create a system that is fair, inclusive, relevant, and modern. And in terms of inclusivity, you called for not only actions to help our children with special education needs, but you called specifically for a policy. So why a policy with regard to inclusive education in Barbados? Because you asked for it, because it is essential that in Barbados we provide opportunities for equitable access to quality education, regardless of students' abilities, their backgrounds, or socioeconomic status. But I must tell you that we did not wait for this policy to be drafted to make steps towards inclusive education. Over the past 4 years, the Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training at the time was working assiduously to close gaps, and we focused intensively on supporting children with diverse abilities and developmental disorders. And I must say that significant strides have been made, including the expansion of inclusionary units through the introduction of special education classes at 4 schools, with a view to expanding access at 2 of our schools, namely the Milton Lynch Primary School and the St. Christopher Primary Schools. And we're not doing this because we just want to. We recognize that there's a need in the southern part of Barbados to have these units. And that's the reason we are seeking to expand at these 2 schools. Additionally, in 2024, 30 of our students received speech therapy. And I'm pleased to say that this year, so far, 28 students have already benefited from that service. We are also working closely with the behavioral and occupational therapists to support parents who are preparing their children to enter school for the first time. Now, you know that we require our children to be potty trained, and some parents do not know what they have to do in order to ensure that their children are potty trained. So this ministry over the past 2 years intensively focused on that, and I must thank the Student Support Services Unit for recognizing that need and for ensuring that our parents are given the chance to give their children, our children, a chance. It is also important to note that a sensory room was established at Olga Miller Nursery School in collaboration with the Barbados Council for the Disabled under the theme, My Inclusive School. Additionally, to enhance literacy, the ministry facilitated 4 multisensory workshops for teachers and for school assistants from both public and private primary and nursery schools. And over 176 participants attended these sessions last summer. Furthermore, 85 teachers received training in structured approaches to the teaching of students who are on the autism spectrum. In partnership with the Rotary Club of Barbados, hearing screenings were conducted for 2,599 infants B and Class 4 students during 2023 to 2024 academic year. This marked a significant increase from the 1,906 students in 2022 and the 1,657 students in 2023. Referrals also rose, with 216 students referred in 2024 compared to 84 in 2022 and 183 in 2023. We listened. You told us that our children are coming in to schools with deficits, and we made sure that we forged partnerships with the Rotary Club of Barbados and the Ministry of Health to try to close those gaps. Vision screening, in collaboration with the Ministry of Health and Wellness, reached 1,600, or 64% of the first form students in 2023 alone, with plans to continue that initiative in 2025. You also called for the reopening of the Alma Paris School, but we did not reopen the Alma Paris School. We opened the Alma Paris Academy, which was different in nature, and that is an institution dedicated to those students who have cognitive deficits. In terms of reading, a structured reading program was implemented across 67 primary schools, 10 secondary schools, and 5 special needs schools. And the program targeted infants A and infants B students, as well as all other children with reading challenges. And through this initiative, 203 teachers have been trained to enhance the reading and comprehension skills of approximately 5,000 students. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We also recognize that there are a number of children who need psychosocial support, and the ministry has significantly expanded its student support services unit from 12 officers in November 2020 to 40 officers today. This includes 7 primary school social workers, 7 secondary school counselors, and 4 safety officers. These professionals work closely with staff to address students' social, emotional, behavioral, and mental health needs. And I must tell you that over the past 2 months, we have received an additional 3 psychologists to help us to address the long list of students who are referred from secondary schools each day. Now, with all the work that has been done by the Ministry of Educational Transformation through the school and the Student Support Services Unit, we acutely recognize that inclusive education cannot be approached in a piecemeal way. In as much as we are trying to close the gaps, we recognize we cannot do it in a piecemeal way. Therefore, as a ministry, we are committed to a comprehensive, strategic approach to meeting the needs to all children with special education needs. As our slogan says, we are committed to creating a bright future for every child. And to this end, we have developed a policy with the help of Dr. Gibbs that future-proofs our education system. It ensures that no one is left behind due to physical or cognitive or economic barriers. It addresses diverse learning needs. Those students who may have physical challenges, intellectual or sensory challenges. They might have learning differences due to ADHD or ADD. We are looking at utilizing differentiated approaches to ensuring that our children are reached at each and every stage. The policy promotes social cohesion and reduces stigma. We want our children to be able to learn together, to realize that everyone is different. Because you look different, it doesn't mean that you are different in terms of your cognitive abilities. So it means, therefore, that our children have to be able to appreciate one another. It will help us, therefore, to break down the barriers that exist when it comes to marginalized groups, and including students from lower socioeconomic backgrounds as well. It engenders economic and workforce development. It ensures that all citizens can contribute to the economy, thus promoting independence and concomitantly reducing long-term dependency on our social welfare. It improves our overall educational quality because it will benefit all learners, not just those with what we call special educational needs. All learners, this policy will benefit. It will reduce repetition rates because, as we said, the policy will look to close the gaps. The curriculum or methods, the content will be tailored to make sure that all of our children succeed. It will build teacher and school capacity. We will ensure that there is teacher training. It will strengthen parental and community involvement. It will make sure that we continue to be aligned with the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. In addition, this country's Education Act and the recently passed Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act aligns with global commitments to non-discrimination and equal opportunities in education. It is our view that the education policy in Barbados goes beyond compliance. As the PS said, it is a moral imperative. It is also a social and an economic imperative that ensures that every single child receives the opportunity to succeed. It strengthens the education system, and all in all, it supports our national development goals. So I look forward to our very robust discussion on how we can make this policy become a reality within Barbados to ensure that we can implement in an effective and efficient manner. I really look forward to this discussion. Over to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Chief, and I must say that that was one comprehensive overview of the what and the why of doing what we call this inclusive education policy. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my distinct pleasure to now invite our consultant and the craftsman of that inclusive education policy that I'm sure you would have scanned when you came through the door. We would have set up 2 scanned position areas that you could be able to download the policy. I hope you took advantage of it, and there's still time. And there's also a feedback form that is also in front of the door that we would want you to be able to take advantage of as you go forward. But we want to now invite our esteemed presenter and guest and consultant, Dr. Janice Gibbs, to give us a presentation on the policy and selective areas of the draft that we will want to be able to engage you with for the next few minutes. Dr. Gibbs?
Permanent Secretary, Ms. Kimbell, Chief Education Officer, Dr. Ramona Archer Bradshaw, Deputy Chief Education Officer, Ms. Julia Beckles, Director, Change Management Unit, Dr. Paul Murphy, Project Coordinator, Skills for the Future, Mr. Stephen Savory, other distinguished members of the ministry, principals, teachers, guidance counselors, members of the disabled community, members of the public, parents, members of the media staff, Ministry of Educational Transformation, ladies and gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening to you.
My name is Janice Gibbs, and I am here to briefly share with you the draft inclusive education policy. I want to encourage you to know that the Ministry of Educational Transformation and the IDB Skills for the Future 2 project have come together and partnered to allow this to happen. Now, the word draft is going to be very important this evening. I'm sorry, but I really need to stand. Old teacher, I need to stand. Yes, I was saying that the word draft is going to be very important this evening because what we are presenting is the process of writing the inclusive education policy so far. It is not a situation of Moses coming down the mountain with 2 tablets in stone. This is why you are here this evening. You are here to add and to put your recommendations also in this policy. So this is part of the process that we are sharing with you this evening. Our pathway today, we are going to be looking at the background and the current situation, the data that has been collected so far. The inclusive philosophy, we are looking at the key policy requirements of this initiative. We are looking at the roles and responsibilities of our key stakeholders. We are looking at various exceptionalities that are going to be facilitated under the policy, the use of individual education plans and group education plans, our transitioning planning and the way forward, and then we will conclude with our recommendations, after which you are free to ask your questions. This document that we have developed so far has pulled from many different sources, locally, regionally, and internationally in terms of documents, including the report on the National Advisory Committee of Persons with Disabilities, which was headed by former MP Edmund Hinkson. We also used the National Policy for Improving the Lives of Persons with Disabilities in Barbados, 2003. We looked at the vision statement of the Ministry of Educational Transformation and the model special needs inclusive education policy, which was commissioned by the Caribbean Development Bank between 2002 and 2003. We also looked at the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, Conventions on the Rights of the Child, and the Sustainable Development Goals, because we want to ground our policy in the international and local and regional documents that have already been developed. Now, why transform? Why is there the necessity to include? There are persons who would say that our current situation in our education system is one of equity. It's equal. Everyone gets the same treatment. Everyone is subject to the same examinations. Is that really equality? We have been advised that what we need to do is make sure that each person gets the supports that he or she needs in order to level the playing field. However, can we take it a step further and ensure that there is barrier-free access to our education curriculum and educational experiences? This is where we are headed. Now, our background and current situation. Historically, we have been promoting those students who are academically gifted to the exclusion of many other students. During our colonial past, this was what was promoted and what was privileged. However, since independence, we realized that we have sort of clung to that old order, and we have seemed to keep that academic privilege going and going and going in our education system. This week, we had all of the press dealing with the top boy and top girl in the Barbados Secondary School's entrance examination. They were highlighted in the media, and we don't want to take away from them because we are very happy for their their achievements. Thank you, Chief. But we are realizing that when we place these students in our top older grammar schools, these students continue on that academic track, and the result is that the older grammar schools will have the Barbados Secondary School Scholarship, the Barbados Scholarships, and the exhibitions going in that way for the academically gifted students. That's fine, but we want to widen the net. We want to provide for all of our students. As a result of our academically gifted focus, many of our students have come away from their school situation feeling like failures. There's a disaffected teaching staff at our newer secondary schools, and about 60% of our students are leaving school without certification. Students with other gifts and talents are not given the full recognition that they need, and students at our special schools are limited to a primary level education irrespective of their age, and in many cases there are no qualifying exit exams. In terms of our quantitative data, we received a very valuable data set from our Student Support Services unit, in which there were 19 categories of students referred to that unit between September 2021 and 2024. Some of those students came with reports, so they were diagnosed as having challenges on the autism spectrum. Some of them had been diagnosed as having attention deficits. Some of them had cerebral palsy and Down syndrome, epilepsy, and so on. But some of our students fell into wider categories. Categories like academic and behavioral challenges, behavioral and emotional challenges. And those are broad categories. We need to now go in and see why these students have been referred in this manner by the teachers in our schools. That total referral data set totaled 1,672 students in that 3-year period, of which 8% of those students, or 127, were students on the autism spectrum with reports. 10% of those students had speech and language challenges. 23% of those students, 378 to be exact, were students with behavioral and emotional challenges, who of course are going to need counseling on the long term. And 28% of those students, a whopping 469 of those students, were the students under that generic label, academic difficulties. They are going to need some interventions. In terms of our qualitative data, we were able to hold meetings and interviews with staff of the University of the West Indies, who, by the way, have their own in-house inclusive education disability policy, the Barbados Community College, the Samuel Jackman Prescott Institute, Barbados Vocational Training Board, and the Earlston Teachers Training College. We also held stakeholder meetings with specialist teachers, parents of students in our current system, past students with exceptional condition, blind, the Barbados Horizon Deaf Charity. These were all interviewed, and there were some recurring results. There were issues with physical access to our educational facilities, issues regarding transportation, curriculum access for our students, some of whom were deaf. There were issues with bullying from fellow students as well as from teachers. It broke our hearts to hear of a student who was challenged with a degenerative eye disease, and his eyes were getting worse and worse. One of his colleagues in the classroom was assisting him by telling him what was on the board, and he was punished by the teacher for copying because the teacher felt that the liaison between him and the other student was for him to get the work from the other student. That broke our hearts. And there were issues with lack of services, the speech and language therapies. We were so happy to hear Chief speak of that, because there's a great and growing need. Issues with resources in our classrooms that teachers spoke about, and rights violations, where parents were told by certain principals that their child does not belong in this particular school. Barbados has a current provision for all of our students. we seek to make provision from general education right up to government-assisted private schools. Currently, in general education, we have students with disabilities of a physical and sensory nature in general education classes, including at this same school, Dighton Griffith. We have students who are in pull-out programs, which we call partial inclusion programs, where their challenges are said to be mild, and they would work with the specialist teacher for part of the day. Afterwards, they would be included with their age-appropriate peers for general subjects like sciences and social studies and art and physical education. We also have full units in mainstream schools where the students are those with moderate challenges and intellectual challenges and behavioral challenges. Those students are only able to interface with their typically developing peers at break time or lunchtime. We also have special schools, and we have some of those principals here today, where students with sensory issues, behavioral issues, and intellectual issues are being facilitated by caring and qualified teachers. And we have government-assisted private schools where those students who are said to be profound in their conditions, their varying conditions, multiple conditions, and who may be incontinent, the government of Barbados liaises and partners with these private schools to give them a yearly subvention where they can be assisted with resources and staffing for the facilitation of the students. Which brings us to our inclusion philosophy. Our inclusion philosophy is to provide a quality education which is inclusive and equitable for all students, and which promotes the opportunities for lifelong learning for all citizens in an accepting and enriching environment. Earlier, I referred to a study that was done by the Caribbean Development Bank. Dr. Joan Spencer Hernandez, between 2022 and 2023, was commissioned, herself and her team were commissioned in the Caribbean area to examine 7 territories, of which Barbados is one, with a view to looking at the key aspects that would need to be in place in order for a successful inclusive education policy to be brought about. And these are her findings. She has found that legislative framework upon which the policy can rest. We are talking specifically about our Barbados Education Act, which is currently being reviewed. Data collection and the cybersecurity, the security of our data. Our data is currently rather spotty, and we want to be able to have the data on our students to know exactly what are the challenges and how they can be facilitated. Assessments, so that that data can be used for decision making. Definitely there's need for some structure there, as well as building our human capital, training of our teachers and our support staff, our school leaders. Full family support services also need to be in place, whereby families who have a child or a young adult with any type of exceptionality will be given the opportunity that a social worker can come alongside and assist that family with all of the necessary interventions, the therapies, and so on, and make sure that there's access to these varying services. Curriculum adaptation and the pedagogical shifts, we are happy to report that that has started in our region. Access to modern technologies are in progress, and the institutional strengthening and the multi-sectoral partnerships between ministries of education, ministries of health, ministries of social care, etc., need to be defined, more clearly defined and structured. One of the issues that we found, one of the key aspects that we found when we went also and held our stakeholder meetings, was that there was need for improved access to services at the local level. What are our guiding principles for our policy? Universal access. All children should be able to access our educational system using the supports, provisions, and the appropriate facilitations that are necessary. Lifelong learning. It is not a case where at 16 years old we tell them sayonara, but rather we continue the support of our students to the next level, whether that is education, further education, or the world of work. Lifelong learning. Full potential. We want to ensure that all of our students can realize their gifts, their talents, and the full potential that is inherent in each and every one of them. Support systems, that speech therapy, the physical therapy, the occupational therapy, psychiatric care, counseling, all of the supports that are needed. And full participation is our end goal, because we want all of our students to be able to be integrated into society as a functioning, well-rounded student, citizen, as our chief has alluded earlier. This means that there are going to be some responsibilities and some roles that must be taken up by our stakeholders. First off, the heavy lifting will have to be done by our Ministry of Educational Transformation. And they are quite ready. They are quite willing to do the heavy lifting. Issues of staffing, issues of resources, issues of funds, budgets, issues of training opportunities, issues of widening the scope of the support staff in our schools. All of these and more are issues that our Ministry of Educational Transformation is willing to take on at this time, and we are very and extremely happy of that. The Erdeston Teachers Training College. The training of our teachers has to be relevant, it has to be structured, and it has to be tailored for the diverse student populations that we are going to be having in our classrooms. We must have our teachers ready to work with our students with their differentiated instruction, with the project methods, the methods whereby they learn in a holistic manner, their understandings of what must happen in terms of the classroom dynamic. All of that must happen, as well as our school leaders, the Erdiston Teachers Training College must ensure that school leaders are ready and prepared for the world of inclusive education. So principals and administrators of our primary and secondary schools also have to be equipped when they are working with students of a diverse nature, students with exceptional conditions. Our schools must be accessible, our bathrooms must be accessible for our student population, as well as for our staff who may, for whatever reason, have had an accident and need support with their access to the bathrooms, to the platforms, to the classrooms. There must be physical access for our staff and our students. The other tertiary level institutions are also going to be on board. Samuel Jackman Prescott Institute, Barbados Community College, the Barbados Vocational Training Board. I see Mr. Thompson is sitting here. Our classroom teachers really need that full training to assist them in creating the atmosphere of inclusivity in their classrooms, and an expansion of our support staff in our beyond the parent volunteer or the nursery aide. We want to suggest that there should be a teacher's assistant in every classroom where there are students with exceptional learning needs, as well as in our special schools and our special units, so that that added support is given to our teachers. Health and social care professionals like our speech therapists, our pediatricians, developmental pediatricians, our physical therapists and our occupational therapists, our psychiatrists and so on. We really need to expand in those areas, and we are hoping that the liaisons between ministries, the multi-sectoral liaisons between ministries, will help to boost the pool of professionals that we can tap into and that we can call upon for our students, because it is not simply an education academic pursuit when we are talking about inclusion. There are other supports that the child is going to need and that the family is going to need to come beneath them to help lift them when we are looking at students with exceptional conditions. And the parents and guardians and caregivers are not left out, because those persons have a serious role to play in taking the professionals' advice, in coming alongside the school and the ministry and assisting in supporting their children, because we want to ensure that they have a stake as well in the plans that we are making for the children. So we are embracing all stakeholders, including parents of children with exceptionalities. There are various exceptionalities that are going to be facilitated. There were 19 referred categories in the Student Support Services unit. We kind of try to, bring them together and merge some of them, and we have ended up with 16. There are only 9 here on this list, but you need to understand that we want to ensure that each child is facilitated. Students with attention deficits, students on the autism spectrum, students who are blind or have vision loss, students who are deaf or have hearing loss, the gifted and talented students. These are the ones that we are observing to be 2 or more years ahead of their age cohort, not only in terms of an academic gifting, but in terms of creativity, the arts, in terms of science, in terms of the visual and the inventions and so on, that our students are able to do mechanical works and so on. Some of our students are way beyond their age cohort in terms of an understanding of the engineering and so on. The coding and robotics is going to come in very handy here for our students who have those giftings. But there are other students who are very hands-on in terms of auto mechanics and so on. And we want to make sure that their gifts are also added to the pool of our economy, because this is an economic reality. This is where we are going. Students with intellectual disabilities, students with specific learning disabilities like dyslexia and dyscalculia and dysgraphia, students with social, emotional, and behavioral issues, and students who have experienced trauma. A growing number of our students have seen persons being gunned down. They have seen persons lying in the street. There have been family members that have met tragic ends, and these students are coming to our schools traumatized, and we need to facilitate them as well. Let's talk about the use of the individual education plans. What are these? These are the plans that teachers are going to develop to help support the exceptional students in the inclusive classrooms as well as in the special classrooms. They expand beyond the academic needs of the student, and they will list the therapies that the student will need, including if they need the speech therapy and the occupational therapy, medical interventions, psychiatric or social interventions. The IEP is a full document that is tailored to the individual student needs to help support that child in the educational arena. But we are also promoting the use of the group education plan. And what is this? This is an initiative which promotes a classroom approach that utilizes group work from the nursery level to the secondary level. There's collaborative learning and collaborative teaching. There is group dynamics being learned. A sense of belonging is being fostered in the group. Social and behavioral skills are being developed. It is a purely academic document. Now, this document will be developed by the teachers in the schools to assist them in making the child who may be exceptional feel a part of the dynamic in the learning community. It is not a case of dropping a child with an exceptionality into a school or into some forum and let the child figure it out. It's going to be a case where the teachers are going to be trained in how to include that child and how to include all the children in the group, so that all of them bring something to the table. One child may be good at speaking, one may be good at art, one may be good at inventing or making models. Whatever is the strength, the project method, the methods whereby we use a holistic approach to the curriculum and work with the children to bring out these various aspects of their talents and gifts. That is what we mean when we're talking about a group education plan. So that plan is going to be worked throughout the system from the nursery level to the secondary for the inclusion of all of our students. We said earlier that the individual education plan is specific to the needs of the individual student. It supports their potential and development. It's tailor-made, and it goes beyond the scope of the academic. The group education plan is collaborative learning. This is where the students are a cohesive unit, such that when they reach Barbados Community College or the University of the West Indies, and some tutor says to them, this next assignment is going to be a group project, that everybody doesn't clutch their pearls and say, what is a group project? It will prepare them for such group dynamics. There are a wide range of applications, and there's a supportive atmosphere that is developed by this approach of the group educational plans. Now, we want to let you know that all of these aspects of the policy also culminate in what we call our transition plan. By that we mean that we want to prepare all of our students for the next level, whether they are going into further education, higher education, tertiary level skills, or whether they want to go straight into the world of work. We want to be able to give all students that support. Not just the students with exceptional conditions, but all students. Because what we have found that was happening was that students were given their wonderful graduations, given their scrolls, and they were sent out into the world to figure it out for themselves. They were figuring out the block. We have to stem that tide. So we are going to give support to our students for their post-secondary education. We want to create liaisons through the secondary schools to those institutions that give the students their skills. We want to establish relationships with community-based businesses, small businesses, medium businesses, ministries. We want to expose our students to the information they are going to need to be an effective worker in the workplace or an entrepreneur, if that is what they choose to do. We want to sharpen their social and job skills, provide reliable support for them, and on-the-job training for them so that they feel supported, so that they know that there's someone they can count on. Our end game is independent living skills. So I am concluding. Greater access to mainstream education, attention to infrastructure and the physical access of our schools, relevant training opportunities, professional development and retooling of our staff, greater access to modern technologies, assessment and data-driven decision-making, full family support services, a broader, more flexible curriculum, institutional strengthening, the enhancement of our human and our material resources, and more interactive classroom approaches. Inclusive education is apt. apps. It's access, participation, and support. This is not a switch that we are turning on this evening. This is part of our process, because inclusive education is a process. The journey of 1,000 miles must begin with the first steps. These are our first steps in helping to make our educational system fair, inclusive, relevant, and modern. My thanks to you for coming out this evening. My thanks to my interpreter, Tony Husbands. My thanks to my husband, Garfield, for driving me here. My daughter, Keen, for coming to support, and my grandson, and all of you who are here. I thank you. I wait your questions.
And we certainly want to thank you, Dr. Gibbs, for that really comprehensive. I thought it was going to be shorter, but I'm able to say that I was fully engaged with everything you said, and you made it come alive. So thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the stage where we are going to be inviting questions on the policy for Dr. Gibbs. We have a mic that is set up in the middle of the aisle, and we are going to be asking you for just a few minutes while we make sure that we have it right. And this is what we will do for persons who want to be able to ask a question or make a comment. We are going to institute a 3-minute rule, so we want you to be able to be short on the preamble and long on the question. So we would want you to come, state your name, ask your question, and then depending on the question that you're asking, it may be for Dr. Gibbs, or you may want it to address it to the Chief Education Officer. Just make your questions very clear and very relevant. So we would want persons to, at this time, start to line up the microphone if you have a question, if you have a comment at this time. Dr. Gibbs, it seems that you were so clear, you were so precise, concise, you were so focused that, oh, well, we have one person who is coming to the microphone. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Your name and your question or comment.
Good night, everyone. My name is Nadia Simmons. I'm a parent of a child on the spectrum. I'm also the Public Relations Officer for the Autism Association of Barbados. Great presentation, but I have a few questions. There are lots of parents whose children are forced to attend private school, and then they're asked to have an aide with the child.
Have
Have an aide with the child at school. How does the policy accommodate that additional cost, stress on the family and, yeah.
Okay, so the comment, the question that you're asking relates to cost to maintain a person with a particular disability at a private school.
Yes.
And you're asking the question, how does the policy address this particular issue?
Yes, because in most cases, the school is requiring the child to attend with an aide. If the aide does not come with them, they can't attend school.
So
and in many cases, the child has attended multiple public schools and have been forced to look for private.
So if I can translate your question, then in other words, what are the support services that this policy envisages that would help your particular situation going forward?
Not mine.
Well, but let me say your child award, that position going forward. Is that
I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for my community.
No, 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 that's fine.
Okay.
I understand, but when I said your, I meant your
Okay.
community, yes. Navigate?
The situation in a private school is different from the situation in a public school. The private school situation is a choice of the parents.
It is
and
not always.
It's not always?
I can guarantee you it's not always.
Okay. Well, in our public school system, we make provision for the students. Under the policy, we are seeking to make provision for the students who, for whatever reason, are having challenges being included. We're making provision for them.
In the public.
In the public school system. As we said earlier, there's going to be a support staff, an additional support staff member there.
So in the policy, you're trying to make space for every child that needs.
We are seeking to do that. This is an inclusive education policy. I don't know if Chief wants to add to that.
All right, yes, I will add to it. But I will let you know first what obtains. The Ministry of Educational Transformation is very aware that we do not have, as Dr. Gibbs said earlier, enough spaces. We don't have enough human resource capacity to cater to all of our students with special needs. As a result, over the years, we have funded private schools to allow our children, our most vulnerable children, to have access. I can tell you that last year alone, we spent just under $4 million ensuring that children who have special education needs, who are unable to get in to public schools, have access within the private schools. This will not stop. What I can tell you is that as part of the policy, we will seek to, as Dr. Gibbs said, increase our capacity physically. We are going to look at the framework that we have at present, where we have a more inclusive approach to education, where children with disabilities and children who have challenges in other areas are able to access mainstream education. In order for this to happen, it means, therefore, that training has to occur at the level of the teacher to make sure that he or she can adequately cater to the needs of the student. And Dr. Gibbs spoke about apps, and the S stands for support. So we're looking to give resources, whether physical or human, within the educational facility, and we also want the support of the parents in terms of ensuring that what is taught, what is shared with the student at the facility is carried on at home. Now, we know that it is not perfect right now. We know that the policy, though, will seek not to stop what we have done over the past few years, but to make it even better. So it goes beyond just providing an aid. Yes, some children will provide an aid, but we are trying to put plasters on what are actually sores. We're looking to see where the gaps are, and I can tell you that we are purposively trying to close those gaps.
Thank you, ma'am.
I have another question. If nobody else. I don't want to take up anybody else.
Well, I'm sure that that's all right for now.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Pertaining to homeschool, once again, there are children who were not successful in public school, private school, and are now being homeschooled, whether it be home with a parent or the parent employing a teacher, or in a small homeschool type home with one teacher and 3 or 4 kids. Because I know of situations where kids have been not successful in public school, private school, and are very successful in a homeschool setting. But is there consideration in the policy for assisting families who have tried public, private, and are now have a small homeschool school with 3 or 4 kids, but they have to pay for this school? You offer bursaries to private schools. Is there a consideration for proven cases where children have not been successful in the public, private setting?
So you want to know first if the policy will cover it? That's your question, in terms of providing bursaries for persons who want to do
consider it, if they would, if they're going to yes. I know it is a big ask.
It's a big ask.
That's
if
a big
you are
ask.
truly inclusive,
Yes.
there are students who are not, who cannot facilitate, who cannot be in a public, who have not been successful in a public and private setting. And if you're truly inclusive, this
I
is
understand
a consideration that should be.
But what I'm saying is that it's a big ask.
Of course.
But many things that we are doing here now as a Ministry of Educational Transformation were big asks. And we got them. All right? So I'm glad that you raised that question and that concern, because now it would make our wheels, the wheels in our brains go. We'll start to think and see how we can make something like this possible. All right, so I thank you very much for raising these things. I'm sure that for Dr. Gibbs, it will be food for thought. For us, it will be food for thought. We will have our discussions, and we will see at the end of the day what it yields and how we can make it work. For us, it is at every stage meeting each child where he or she is. Yes. And what touched me just now is what you said about the public school isn't working, the private school isn't working, the home school might be the thing that is working, but then you might need some support. The Ministry of Educational Transformation, I can tell you, will be willing to support, but do we have the funds? It's a big ask. Yeah. But we are going to have the discussion and see what can come out of that. Thank you for your questions.
I think, panel, one of the things that I'm taking away from the discussion so far is that the policy is all encompassing as far as we can within the context of education. So what we are saying is, and what I'm hearing is, persons are asking the question in specifically certain areas. But I think, Dr. Gibbs and Chief, is it that the policy seeks to be able to focus itself on no child being left behind as not just a slogan, but on how it is all encompassing and how we are going to treat to those particular issues? Because as has now been the case, we are now looking at so many different areas. When you talked about the 19 areas that were reflected in the student support services, areas that persons were presenting. How does, for example, those areas that were qualitative and that were broad, how do we then as a ministry start to drill down and find out a little bit more about what that really means?
The need for the data and the assessments is critical. It's critical. And that is one of the areas that we would need to start in. We need to know what we have going on there. We are already aware that this island of Barbados has projected that nearly half of our citizens will be over 50 years old by 2035 or something like that, or 2030. But we are not clear on what is the condition of our students between the ages of 0 and 35, or young people. We don't know their mental state. We are not clear on what challenges they are facing emotionally. We don't have the data. And we need some data so that we can start making those decisions about how we are going to facilitate our students. We need that data. So I would say one of our early steps is going to be that data gathering. and securing that information because it's sensitive information. It cannot fall into the hands of every and any person. Sadly, there are some persons that we have to ensure that our children are protected from them because they do not understand the issues of confidentiality. So those bits of data, those wide swaths, I should say, not bits, of data need to be gathered so that we will know exactly the face of our students who are coming through the ranks.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Your name and your question or comment.
Good evening. I'm going to ask you to bear with me because I don't have much of a voice. And I'm going to start exactly where Dr. Gibbs ended. I am here this evening representing the daycare sector. And let me just commend the ministry for all the work that they have done and that they are doing in catering to the needs of this very vulnerable population. I agree with you in terms of the data, because...
Ma'am, could you tell us your name?
Oh, sorry, Gail Carter, that's G-A-L-E. You spoke about nursery, but that would refer to nursery within the school setting. So my first question is, how does this inclusive policy impact daycare? Because they're coming from daycare to school. And I believe that it is important for us to collaborate and to collect and share that data with you, because you shouldn't have to wait until the children get to school to know what you're dealing with. And currently in daycare, trust me, we have just as many challenges that you have. We're seeing the behaviors from very, very early. And so there needs to be further collaboration between the two entities, because early childhood in Barbados currently falls under two separate ministries, two separate organizations. And if we are looking at legislative framework, in the absence of legislative framework that governs early childhood nationally, you will always have children who are being left behind. Then, the other thing that I wanted to, so my recommendation is that under education transformation, that you have an early childhood unit or commission in the ministry that deals specifically with matters pertaining to early childhood. This is from birth to 8, so that you're ensuring that you're capturing all the children across Barbados. There are 15 government day nurseries and there are over 120 private day nurseries. If you're catering to inclusivity, you have to know what's happening in those spaces. The other thing that I wanted to recommend in terms of your human resources, there's a national scholarship for speech therapy. And the ministry reported last year, I think it was, that it is very undersubscribed. There's an age limit of 30. The young people in Barbados ain't getting in no human resource, no social. They're looking for the jobs where the money is. The technical, the electronics. I would like to recommend that you revisit the age limit for that particular scholarship, because there are a lot of people over 30 who would love to get the training in speech therapy to be able to help the children. That's a win-win, because it helps you. Because then you have more persons who are trained in speech therapy to assist with the challenges that you're facing. Within the last 10 years, we've seen an influx of children with speech and language delays. I see it every day. So that is something that I would recommend. You don't have to take it up to 50, but, you know, think about it. And the last thing I want to add is that you talked about a transition plan. You talked about it at a higher level. We also need to look at a transition plan from daycare to school. So therefore, I will be looking forward to having many more conversations with the Ministry of Educational Transformation as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you, Gail.
Thank you very much. So if I were to summarize then, you are focusing your attention on what happens at the daycare level.
That's where I work.
There you go. And then you are also focusing your attention on what happens, if I were to summarize your contribution, in terms of how the ministry should cater to the whole idea of speech therapy and so on.
Absolutely, and I will give you some context. I've been an educator with the Ministry of Education for over 20 years. I am now the Early Childhood Development Coordinator for the Child Care Board. And it is my vision to help with the transition between daycare and school. Because teachers sit in schools, they make assumptions, they don't know what happens in daycare. Daycare staff sit in daycare, they make assumptions, they don't know what happens in schools. So there needs to be more collaboration if we are truly going to cater to the needs of our children. We cannot work in silos. We have to have the conversations so that it is multi-sectoral in terms of being able to cater to all our children.
You'll be happy to know that the ministry is hearing you loud and clear because the discussions are ongoing internally as well.
No,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So go ahead, speak to it. Ms. Gil Carter, I want to thank you so very much for your submission. And there is a theme that is coming out from what you said here this evening, and that is greater collaboration. And let me tell you why I say this. You are aware that we are seeking to universalize the pre-primary education. Right now, as it stands, we have one ministry that is responsible for the learning and education of 3 to 5 year olds, and another ministry, the Ministry of Educational Transformation, that's responsible for the learning and education of another set of 3 to 5 year olds. What this Ministry of Educational Transformation will do as part of the education transformation agenda is to bring all 3 to 5 year olds under the same umbrella. It means, therefore, that all of the policies that we're discussing here, including the inclusive education policy, will cater to at the pre-primary level, or cater to the students at the pre-primary level. It does not discount, though, the fact that children under 3 years old will come into school with their histories and their profiles, and that we need to understand what is happening with them to be able to teach them in a way that lays the foundation for proper learning and eventually lifelong learning. Collaboration again. You spoke about the National Development Scholarship. Again, under 2 different ministries now, because we are the Ministry of Educational Transformation, but we have a Ministry of Tertiary Education and Training who will be responsible for the National Development Scholarships. Your point is very well made. So it means that we have to sit at that round table and have very good discussion about how we create a pipeline from birth to death so that we have a population that is educated, we have a population that can cause Barbados to be more sustainable in the long run, and that can ensure that all of us have a bright future. So I want to thank you so very much for that submission.
Thank you. Our next person.
Okay, so He's going to sign, I'm going to voice interpret, and then the interpreter will answer in sign language.
Can't hear. Can't hear.
Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Dario. I am deaf, fully deaf. And I have a few questions from persons in the deaf community and myself. So kindly be patient and bear with us. There are quite a few, but I'll try to make it brief. Former students of the Irving Wilson School, where can they go to have a second chance to further their education? And what subjects can they learn?
The details of the policy cannot all be delivered here, but I want you to know that the Irving Wilson School and the former students of that school are very dear to my heart. And one of the things that we have in the policy is that we are asking for the Ministry of Educational Transformation to provide second chance classes for all of those former students, so that they too can be participating in the lifelong learning opportunities that we are providing for all students.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
There are teachers at the school who really don't sign very well. They need to be replaced with good teachers, teachers who are themselves deaf, who are more qualified to teach those deaf students. They can better relate to those students, and also have teacher assistants who are deaf. The hearing teachers who don't sign very well, when they teach the children, they will not develop very well. I encourage persons to find deaf teachers and teachers assistants so that those deaf students can really develop, because they can relate to one another. They can understand their feelings, their emotions, and so on. I encourage the Ministry of Education to consider this and to perhaps, just like we're having here, have meetings with the deaf community to see how they can improve the education system, because it all needs to change and be improved. You can listen as they express themselves and their views and choose whatever is of top importance. And then you can continue to make changes in relation to other areas as time goes on.
The policy also discusses the staffing of the school for the deaf, the Irving Wilson School, with staff that is qualified to deliver the curriculum with the American Sign Language that is global, universally understood, so that the students can benefit from a quality education that will assist them in moving into other areas of study and other areas of endeavor. They will not be left out where that is concerned.
Okay, I wish to add, here in Barbados, the deaf community uses Bajan Sign Language as well as American Sign Language, because among the deaf themselves, they will develop their own variation of the sign language. There is no one sign language for all deaf persons in the world. There are many different sign languages. For example, she would use PSL, I use Bajan Sign Language. I can also communicate in French Sign Language. I can adapt so that I may be able to help whoever is my audience. As the teachers train in college, they must find deaf teachers, they must put in place deaf teachers to teach sign language classes, not only hearing people to teach sign language, and then they sign the wrong things, teach the wrong things. I encourage you find persons who grew up in the deaf community, who have interacted with the deaf, have traveled to various islands and places, and who really know deaf culture to help people who are hearing to be enlightened and realize the different world, the deaf world, level 1, level 2, level 3 of learning. And if they want to work as a teacher at the Irving Wilson School, application paper, what level? Level 1, no. Level 2, no. They should have like a level 5 or up. And then be put in place to really help the students to advance.
Dario, I know that this came up also when we had the stakeholder interview meeting with the Barbados Horizon Deaf Charity. And we want to, excuse me, we want to assure you that we are aware, excuse me, we are aware that there are variations in sign language and so on between territories and between countries. But we want to standardize that American Sign Language is what is to be the language of instruction for the deaf here, so that there's at least a standard rather than making up as you go along, because that is not sustainable. That is not sustainable even in the international arena. So we want to ensure that there is a standard language of instruction. There is training that needs to happen for the staff and the potential staff of the Irving Wilson School. And I want to let you also know that Dr. Joan Spencer Hernandez also made the point when she was developing the regional model for the policy framework in the Caribbean. She also made recommendation for there to be teachers with disabilities. That includes teachers who are blind and teachers who are deaf. Currently, we don't have a deaf teacher at the Irving Wilson School, but I know that for in the unit for the blind, there is a she comes once a week. Most Honorable Carrie-Ann Eiffel, she works with the students in the blind unit there. But we need to encompass more persons who are able to deliver that curriculum. They may have disabilities, but that should not disqualify them if they have reached or attained the qualification level to be able to work in the schools for those children who may have those sensory issues. And they want to see a role model. They want to see that it is going somewhere. What happens is that many of our deaf students and our past deaf students are now disaffected because they don't see any students who are past students of the Irving Wilson School rising. Social mobility seems to have stopped for those persons who are deaf, and it is really disheartening. So they have withdrawn and they move among their own circles, but we want to include all students, all citizens, because the end result must be both economic and social enfranchisement, breaking down those barriers, allowing all citizens to participate fully in our educational system and in our society, in our economy, because this makes economic sense.
Thank
Okay, thank you for your answer. I just have 2 final questions.
Quickly.
So I read the PDF from Skills for the Future. After children complete their learning at a remote school, perhaps around age 18, but I don't agree with finishing at age 21. I think age 18 is better. After completing school, they need more education, perhaps in a mainstream setting. They can learn skills, but it is a challenge for the deaf because in a mainstream setting, there may be hearing disabled persons, and then there's the deaf students, and they're being taught, and they may feel alone because they're not able to communicate with the others. I think it is best that we have the hearing disabled in one area, but then the deaf in another where they can learn skills like hairdressing, photography, filming, cooking, and so on. A group of deaf being trained. You can find a person who can teach them well, someone who knows sign language or a good sign language interpreter to be with the teacher so that they can develop skills. That would be better than if they are integrated with hearing disabled children, because they have had experiences after completing the 11 plus, going to mainstream schools with mostly hearing people and just like one deaf person, and it was quite a struggle. But if you can have a group of deaf persons that can support each other, that would be good. I encourage you to think about that. Find a room and a teacher who has the heart to really care for and support the deaf and strongly support them so that the deaf have someone to look up to and everyone feels uplifted and they can develop skills and look forward to a fruitful future.
Thank you for that recommendation. Heartily appreciate it.
We have two others, and the time is coming close to 8.
Okay, that's fine. I'm finished.
That's fine.
Thank you so much for your answer.
And thank you
Thank
for
you very
coming
much.
forward, Dario. We appreciate it.
Before we have our next person on the mic, I just want to let everyone know that we are streaming live, and there are some questions that would have come in off of our YouTube channel this evening. And I just wanted, I think, Chief, you alluded to this earlier with regard to the potty training. The question from Chantel on YouTube was, there are issues with potty training and parents are being asked to find, in some cases, alternative schooling for their children. What can be done or what mechanisms can be implemented to combat this?
All right, so we have here the Senior Education Officer who has responsibility for the Student Support Services Unit. So I'm going to ask her to come to the mic and speak to what they have been doing in terms of potty training and the direction in which we will be moving in that regard. We had some discussion on it.
Good night, everyone. My name is Kay Sargent. I'm the Senior Education Officer in Student Support Services. We do recognize there are students, there are children, as we would have heard earlier, who, because of the nature of the disability, they are unable to master the skill. Some of them never master that skill. Some of them, because of the disability, will not be able to be potty trained, as is commonly referred to. And so that is actually why the Ministry of Education promotes alternative schooling at this time. I must note, as was said previously, that we are working on expanding the services of what we do offer in government schools. We talked about having the teachers' aides in the classroom. We talked about having teacher assistants, and that is something that we are striving towards. We hope at some near future, very soon, in our transformational process, that we are able to provide this. But at the moment, we do have teachers' assistants, but that is on a limited basis. So what we're doing instead, we're offering bursaries to private, approved, let me put that word in there, approved private special schools, where the Ministry of Education, the government of Barbados, will fund your tuition at a school if that is the case for you. So on all fronts, we know that we acknowledge the need to have it, and we are also working towards strengthening what our product is in our special schools.
Thank you very much. And the next question before you come on, ma'am, is there a mechanism for a child's file to follow them so teachers can see what teaching strategies earlier teachers used which were effective?
So I'll take that one. Right. So, a very good question. Yes, when we had our reimagining education discussions, that was a concern. It was said that children transition from one form to another, from one teacher to another, without the teacher that the child is coming to having any background information on the child. So as part of the education transformation agenda, we are introducing something called a student profile that they will carry with them from 3 years old all the way until they leave basic education. So whenever a child moves from one class level to another, that profile will go with them. The profile will speak about the child's successes, you know, the things that the children are interested in. For example, if they like football, cricket, they like to read, if they have reading deficits, if they have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It will speak to the child on a whole, so that any teacher receiving that child will have an idea of how to tailor the lesson to meet the needs of our child. Because again, we are creating a bright future for every child.
Good evening. I am Hazel Roberts, a teacher of many years. I am also a mother of 2 sons, one adult and one minor. The second one, he's in secondary school now. But I want to remind us and bring awareness, because when we talk about, what I keep hearing about special ed and special education, I think for some reason or another, ADHD is somehow pushed in the background. It is not highlighted, it is not brought to the fore. You hear about all the others, but I am not hearing this emphasis and awareness on ADHD. I am not. All right? To the point that with my son having approached the Ministry of Education for assistance with him, that took a little too long for me, and I approached the Ministry of Health. So I went through the Ministry of Health in order to access the intervention needed for my son. And funny enough, it was quite quick too, all right? I also want to bring awareness to, it's a very, I may be unpopular and I might be stoned, but children who are academically gifted have challenges also. If somebody's academically gifted and their creativity is stifled in the classroom and they're not allowed to think differently, to be neurodivergent, to figure out a mathematical problem in a different way, as opposed to, this is how to do it this way. That could lead to behavioral problems and challenges in the classroom. And then the question is asked, but this child is a bright way getting on so. All right? So we don't want to go too far left, we don't want to go too far right. We don't want to say we're going to help the ones who are struggling, who got the 30% and the 20%, and we forget the other ones at the top. We don't want to forget them. All of our students have to learn. We have to help all. And we can't say that him at home so she can help him, right? Because remember now, if I send my son or to school, it's incumbent on the teacher or teachers to teach to the child I've sent to school. All right? So I want that ADHD is recognized in Barbados, especially diagnosed, because we don't know what's going on with children who might be in the classroom. As teachers, we cannot diagnose. We cannot say they have this, we cannot say we have that. But as long as they're diagnosed, and there's a letter, for example, from the psychiatrist or the psychologist, then that child has to be included into the classroom. And the idea of
your last point, ma'am?
the idea of teachers, a teacher might say, well, he's not the only child in this classroom. Doesn't sit well. Because while he's not the only child in the classroom, he is a child in the classroom. Okay? Good. Now, occupational therapy. Occupational therapy is beneficial for children with ADHD, and I'm going to continue and focus on ADHD. Right now we have Mr. Lennox Rochester, who has retired, a giant of a man, a very wonderful man. He has helped my son. And now my son is without occupational therapy, all right? Because these children also have to deal with things like anger management and so on and so forth. So if the Ministry of Education can liaise with the Ministry of Health, however y'all do it, we have some occupational therapists to help the students, the children. That would also be nice. Let us go on to teacher training.
Ma'am, you must give us an answer. You must give us a chance to answer. You've highlighted 3 so far, and we need to be able to give. No. You talked ADHD. You talked about gifted students, and you also talked just now.
Gifted ADHD students.
Exactly. So, gifted ADHD students.
Yes, please. I'm focusing tonight on ADHD.
Let's hear what she said.
Okay, come down then.
Right, and then y'all could answer. Teacher training. I'm a teacher myself, and I do a lot of reading and etc. and educate myself. But yes, as Dr. Gibbs said, we need to have our teachers training classroom where we place children with special challenges in the classroom. So that's just a kind reminder. All right, my last thing is about our boys and our males. I am a mother of sons. I don't have a daughter. I don't know what it is to have to mother a daughter. But I can see what is happening in Barbados with our boys and our males. All right? So I would like to know, how are we treating to our sons in the classroom? I ask myself that question too, because I'm a teacher too. All right? Are we doing anything to elevate them in terms of education in the classroom? What are we doing in reference to the policy we have put for our sons? I am making a plea for our ADHD, children with ADHD. I'm making a plea for our sons. I still have a son in school. Okay? That's it.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Dr. Gibbs, and the policy, and then Chief, I think there may be something in there for you as well.
Thank you for your contribution, Ms. Roberts. The policy speaks to the inclusion of all students, and it highlights the use of the strengths of the student in order to facilitate the student the way he or she learns. It is not a policy that is specific to a particular gender. It is a policy that is specific to students, all students. So yes, your sons will be, your son, the one that is still in school now, will be facilitated. We can't do anything about the dearth of male teachers in our system. He will meet a stream of female teachers wheresoever he goes to school. But we are making suggestions with respect to the facilitation of our students that the instruction, the pedagogy becomes more activity-based learning in our schools, so that even students with attention deficit disorders can be engaged. They can learn through play, they can learn through manipulating, they can learn through doing things with their hands or moving their bodies or going outside or investigating the science rather than writing a note from the board, going outside and actually interacting with the scientific world, so that those skills of observation and classification can be made right there on the spot in the context within which they are seen. And I understand and appreciate what you are saying, because my grandson is only quiet because he has that tablet.
And before the chief comes in, Chief, Dr. Gibbs, what about the whole issue of gifted students in the policy as an exceptionality? Have we addressed that particular dynamic?
Yes, we spoke about that, and we discussed the fact that there are students who are way beyond their age grouping in terms of a gift or a talent. They can make things, they can do mechanical works, their visual art is superior, whatever. The areas in which they themselves are gifted, we are going to give the supports that they need in those areas, because we need everybody in the society. We need everyone. So yes, there's going to be that support for those students who are also gifted and talented. It's also written in the policy.
Good night, panel. Thank you so much for your answers to the questions from the public. We have a few more questions left. We have 4 persons waiting to ask some questions, and then we are going to end the questioning for tonight. So thank you, and keep your answers as concise as possible. Thank you.
Good night. My name is Alicia King.
Sorry, we missed your name.
Alicia King.
Alicia
King.
King.
As in King. Right. No. My thing is, I do like your transitioning planning. I like it bad.
Could you come a little closer to the mic? Yes.
There we go. Can you hear me a little better?
Just come a little. Yes.
Is it better there now? Oh, okay. Can you hear me? Right. Thank you. I like the transitioning planning. I must say, I think it's something that was long in the works, because it would have been so effective. Now my thing is, what about the ones that are teens? By the time you have done draft this and it has been implemented or it have come to any fruition, what about the teens? What about the children who are 16, 17, 18? That is my question. What provisions are y'all going to put in place in this said draft to look at those kids that we have on the autism spectrum? Oh yeah, I'm a proud autistic mom. And I'm curious, I want to know, what are y'all going to do? What is the Ministry of Education going to do for our children who are teenagers? Because this is good. But by the time y'all get to implement it, he will be no longer in the school system.
But this is why we are creating the second chance classes and so on. Those students who need additional support as a young adult. This is why we are bringing the social workers alongside the families, not just the child, but the families, to ensure that the next step, the transitions, they can't transition to home. We don't want a situation where they're just non-productive. So we are bringing the supports to the families so that those students who have already aged out, by the time that the policy is established, that we can call them back. They can come back, and whatever areas of skill or training that they are interested in. This is also a ministry that deals with tertiary level training and education. So the child, the young adult can come back, and that area, we can make provision in those areas for that child to
That child can come back, you say, or will you all send letter or email regarding, well, this child was not able to participate in this new thing that we had? Would you all be offering, these are the courses we're now offering, can he, because I said autism to let you know that every child on that spectrum does not learn the same way. Well, I ain't going to know you all know all of that. So therefore I want to know, because when it's done, my son is going to be about 18, maybe even 20, because it takes a long time to get these wheels working. So in that process, he's going to phase out of school.
Public service announcements still work, and the onus is on the parent to make contact and let us see what the child is interested in, because we don't want to just push him in something. We want to ensure that the child is interested in the area that the parent is bringing the child forward to. It isn't the parent's dream, it is the child's ambition.
And that all get nurtured in the school setting.
Yes.
That's where we find it. And then the parents, even though they may have an idea, the child goes into the setting and all of that changes. So back at the school again. But I will look forward to the future of it. Thank you.
I want to give you the assurance also, Alicia. Alicia, that's the name, right?
Yes, please.
That the Ministry of Educational Transformation will work with the Ministry of Training and Tertiary Education. And we've already started, a bit of collaboration to see how we can, as I said before, create a pipeline. Because we don't want to, at 16 years old, we're finished with them in the Ministry of Educational Transformation and we just throw them out there. So one of the things that I had discussed with the director, who is now at the Ministry of Training and Tertiary Education, is how can we create a pipeline so that we capture all of our children, even, after they leave secondary school. We have to look at the training institutions like the same SJPI and BCC and the Barbados Vocational Training Board, and provide programs for our children with exceptionalities there as well. And we have to consider those who are gifted as well to make sure that every person is catered to. So I assure you that that collaboration will continue and it will strengthen so that your sons, is your son?
Yes, one
right, so that your son is not left behind. That is our goal, and that's what we'll be working towards.
And I, as a parent, can I agitate with you all when I realize that I'm not hearing anything or saying anything?
What you as a parent can do is come and offer some more ideas, offer suggestions, see how you can support us in rolling out. You see, because what has to happen, we have to see this as a collaborative effort. So we don't want you coming to say, well, we all said, you all said this and this, da, 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 da. Okay, we realize that, I'm Alicia now. I realize that y'all haven't rolled this out. How can I help? Where do you need the help? We all, I know that you asked us to keep the responses short, but I have to say this, right? We have to understand that it takes an entire village to raise a child. An entire village. The Ministry of Educational Transformation can't do it alone. Nope. The schools can't do it alone. The teachers can't do it alone. If the village does not embrace the child, then the child will burn down the village to feel its warmth. So we have to stop. I'm talking, the public, I believe they're listening, everybody. We have to stop this whole thing of blaming, pointing fingers. You ain't do this, you ain't do that. And hold hands. Instead of pointing fingers, we'll put your hand and hold hands together to see how we can embrace our young people and provide all the opportunities that they need to excel. Once we change our mindsets, we as a country can go exceedingly far.
That's right.
I agree.
Thank you.
I will call the ministry.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much. Our next.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Ardith Burgess. I have one question. We've talked a lot about collaboration as it relates to what's happening in the schools and what's specifically geared towards the children. Yes, I agree with that. I am a parent. My kids have now moved on to adulthood. My focus is, as part of this collaboration, how are you going to engage and take the strategy, the policy that you've written? I've not heard anybody talk about what the strategy is going to be to engage the parents of these children, because that's where the problem comes. I heard one of the, I think it's the principal of, Ellerslie, talk about a lot of the stuff that they're dealing with in the school is coming from the home.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, being an optimist and working in Milton Lynch Primary and all those other things, that the challenge comes in that parents do not attend Parent Teachers Association meetings, all of the things that you would think people want to be engaged in, they don't come. So if that is the case, and we know that this is a long-standing problem since Adam was a lad, how are y'all going to write that strategy and implement it so that everybody is included, not just we working together as a group to do whatever the children, because when the bell rings at 3 o'clock, they're going home to the mess that they left at 8 o'clock. So until we figure out what that collaboration is going to look like as it relates to everybody, they talk about burning down the village. So if that's the case, we got to stop it before it gets to that stage. So I want to see in the policy, what is the strategy in dealing with the parents? Not just for the children who are autistic or all the other things. It's everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. So Dr. Gibbs, the question that I'm hearing is, how does the role of parents factor in the policy in terms of how that is spoken to?
Well, within the policy, the details reflect a seeking to incentivize, Ms. Burgess, to incentivize parents that they will see it worth their while to cooperate with the school, to cooperate with the medical professionals, to cooperate with the social worker who is coming alongside their families, to show them that this is something to help them and help their family develop and further the whole scope of the family's upliftment. We are looking to ensure that the supports that the parents need and the supports that the children need are set in place to help these parents who may be feeling out of their depth, who might be feeling overwhelmed, to let them know that help is here, that we are going to come alongside them and assist them, because it cannot be easy with some of those students with exceptionalities. It cannot be easy in their households. But once we can let them know that these professionals are here not to hurt you, but to help you, to support, that big word support, to support what we want to do to help develop this child, to ease your burden, to assist in whatever ways we can. We want to incentivize that in our parents, even if it takes that they need to become involved in some parenting classes, even if they need to become, we need to make sure that they have a pathway for resources and helps and so on. This is what we are committed to doing, not just, passing a curriculum to a child. It isn't that anymore. We're not doing that anymore. It is a holistic approach for the entire family to help support them. Chief, you wanted to say?
Yes, thank you very much. Again, a very good question, very good contribution.
Yeah.
The issue of parental engagement goes beyond inclusive education. There is an issue with parental engagement, full stop.
All the teachers are clapping.
The level of engagement of parents when I was a child is different to what I'm seeing now as Chief Education Officer. And this issue didn't start 2 years or 3 years ago. This is something that started to decline several years ago. Principals report to me that they invite parents to meetings, PTA meetings, and I see a retired principal, she doesn't look like it, nodding her head. And very often you have 40 or 50 parents showing up.
You got a lot. You name a lot.
And somebody said that's a lot, right? For a school that has 500 to 1,000 children. This is not good enough. And we, as a Ministry of Educational Transformation, recognized that this is not good enough. As a result, we went all out to see how we can reimagine parental engagement. Our minister is very keen on meeting with all the interest groups, asking them to come to a town hall meeting, or some kind of meeting and have discussion, and that is good, or meeting them online. But one of the things we have proposed, because we realize that the parents are not coming, even if you have food or sandwiches, they're still not coming. You tell them, come, you get a little sandwich, you get some cake, they're still not coming. So we said, well, if they're not coming to us, it means we have to devise a program to go to them. And so we have engaged an external organization, because with these things you need money, you need advocates, you need influencers, you need to get transportation to go to the gas station and to go to the supermarket to talk with people, because they're not going to come to a school. And we must understand that this thing is a vicious cycle, There's
a reason.
Some of our parents didn't like school when they were going to school. So when you call them to a school, they ain't coming. Sorry, they're not going to come. Right? So really, because we are so invested in your children, we call them our children, we have devised a program which will roll out. You will hear a minister speak a bit about it in the coming months, where the Ministry of Educational Transformation and its supporters will be out there, gas stations, supermarket, all over the place, on the blocks even. Our social workers and counselors go on the blocks almost every day, all kinds of places every day, but we'll be out there in full force, trying to tell parents about the importance of having that investment, making that investment in their children's lives, so that we can make sure that they are the best. And I'm going to say this one piece quickly, Stephen, permit me. We believe, and call us foolish for saying that, I don't care. We believe that the education system in Barbados can be the best education system in the world. We have excellent teachers. We have students who are no different to others in the rest of the world. True. But it is the belief, the will, that willpower that you can be the best, according to the Minister of Educational Transformation, Minister Chad Blackman, that we can be the first, not the last, not the middle, not the second, the first. It starts with that belief. So parental engagement is an issue, but we're trying to tackle it head on.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you, Chief, for that compliment. I am the retired principal, 47 years. I am here to give my support and compliment Dr. Gibbs on presenting what I have known over the years to be her passion in special needs education, and she and I would have spoken from time to time about this very same topic. I want to compliment the Ministry of Education in refocusing its attention on the inclusivity of students, because over the years, 47 years, I would have met quite a number of students whom sometimes would throw your hand up in the air, you just didn't know what to do with them. I remember years ago doing a program, Health and Family Life Education, which is totally different from the one that the ministry practices. because it contained a component of parental education which started at the polyclinics. And I would like for the ministry to revisit something like that, where at the polyclinic, where you're doing your prenatal conversations and so on, that the emphasis of should your child be the child who has the special needs. These are the things that you're going to look for. These are the things that should be done, so that there's that multi-sectoral link between the care that is given prenatal, postnatal, and when the child enters the nursery schools, wherever they are. So thank you very much, and Dr. Gibbs, please continue the good work.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And our
Thank
final...
you, Ms. Holder.
I'm sorry?
Patrona.
Good evening.
Patrona
I will be
Holder.
very brief because there's a gentleman who allowed me to come.
Patrona Holder.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Who allowed me to come, and he was the person here. I am Suzanne King, the chairman at Foundation School. I am going to speak to the PS because we have just built a ramp to allow, one of our students who did not come in as a special needs, but through illness, he wanted to return to the school that he passed for, as Bajans would say. And one ramp has been completed, and we are about to build another. So I just wanted to give some of the parents hope that there are people who are sensitive to including the children. However, we are going to have to look, I would think, at a plan structurally for the boards to revamp the schools so that they are friendly for people with disabilities. I had double hip replacement 2 years ago, shortly after I had been appointed chairman. And you know what I realized? I had taught at that school for many years. I used to climb up those steps without any rails when I was teaching because I was about 20 years younger. So I was running up and down the steps, only to come back and find how do people with disabilities or older people manage these steps without even a rail to go up. And these are things that I would just wish the ministry to have a look at and work with the boards. As I say, I'm about to build the second ramp because we had the funds, but I heard we are willing to give us some funding to build some of the other things so that we can, for example, if we have a child with a disability that needs to get on the stage to do a performance or join the choir, he or she will be able to get there because it is important. And that is just my appeal, but I'm looking forward to us having a plan with the Ministry of Education and with the unit that deals with the implementation of the changes in structure to be able to accommodate the children. Luckily, he will get a second ramp. He needed a bathroom and he needed an art room, and we have done one already and it's finished, and we're about to do the other one.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Before you come, sir, I can speak to the issue, ma'am, and this is part of our Skills for the Future project. In fact, last year in collaboration with the Ministry of Infrastructure and the Infrastructure Minister and the Ministry of Housing and other related parties, the Ministry of Education conducted an exercise in modern school designs. And as part of that process, we would have developed a number of areas that we are focusing on, not only for new school buildings, but also for existing plant that we are now going to be rolling out. In fact, one of the things that we are going to be doing over the next year is we are going to be looking at how we can be able to reimagine and redevelop those schools that are under the purview of the Ministry of Education and Transformation, and step by step incorporate the number of things that you're talking about, the ramps and all the other things. In fact, I can tell you, I can share with you that we've come up with 25 design factors that are part of the overall reimagining of how our schools, both at the primary and secondary level, what they should be going forward in the 21st century. And the Ministry of Education and Transformation is actively putting those plans, whatever we are doing in terms of rehabilitation of those existing schools will form part of that remit. And what we're talking about is exactly part of that process as we move forward to increase and improve our school plan going forward. Yes, sir. Our final intervention. Yes, sir.
All right, Lady Trotman, currently assigned to the Hill School.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so when I was assigned to the school, I was pleasantly surprised at the level the students were at. My expectation was not that they were there. My expectation for the students was that they were not at the level that they were at to be productive citizens. And on engaging with them, I not only found that they were capable, but willing to be productive citizens. So my question for you is, in your inclusivity program, is there a structured program for transitioning from school to work? Because currently they're under the primary school system. Our curriculum is primary school curriculum. So that's my question.
We are hoping that the chief can speak to this, but we have advocated even in the policy that the schools that are designated primary schools, even though the students are 16 to 18 years old when they leave, that those schools be redesignated so that there is a clear path to assist them to transition to the world of work or the world of further education when they are about to step through your doors.
And lastly, I just want to advocate for some kind of nurse to be on plan for students with special needs.
Oh, the nurse on plan? Yes, this policy speaks to having a nurse not on plan per se in the initial stages, but shared between those special schools there. You know, they are in the same area. So that is one of the details in the policy.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been very patient, and I want to applaud you for staying the distance with us as we started and now concluded our town hall meeting. There will be another meeting that we will hold in this regard, and we will ask you to look out for this information as we present it. But before we go, I'd like for just 30 seconds for both Dr. Gibbs and the Chief and the PS. You have the final word in terms of the vote of thanks. And if you can be able to, in the next 30 seconds, Dr. Gibbs and the Chief, wrap it up for us as we get ready to leave.
I again want to thank all of you for coming out. I thank those of you who have participated and those of you who have made recommendations. They are very strong recommendations that have been made, and definitely we are going to use those recommendations however we can to assist in building out this policy. As you know, this is part of the process. I have to keep emphasizing that it's not a cut and dried situation. What it is a part of the process. So however we can incorporate those ideas, those recommendations, those suggestions, we are going to do so going forward so that we can have a policy that's workable for all of us. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Chief?
Yes, I just want to do the same. Thank everybody for coming and sharing. We listen, and we listen tonight. Very good contributions coming from you. And I want you to continue to commit to helping us as the Ministry of Educational Transformation to create a bright future for every child.
Thank you. And the formal vote of thanks from our PS.
Good night once again. To thank you for coming out and sharing. In my opening remarks, I spoke about collaboration, and in terms of sharing of information, listening to each other, and I recognize that this evening we did do that. And the ministry, we have taken on board all that you have shared. We have heard some things that we did not, that gave us some food for thought. For example, the contribution in relation to the National Development Scholarship in terms of extending the age limit. We also, even though that is not within our purview because it no longer rests with the Ministry of Educational Transformation, it's now under the Ministry of Training and Tertiary Education. It is something that we will also, we will share. And as the chief spoke in her presentations tonight in terms of having that pipeline from birth right through. And we being in the middle of all that in terms of basic education, so feeding into us and as we feed it on to the tertiary education, the policy being able to run that whole length because we're making sure that no one is left behind. So it goes beyond no child being left behind, but no one being left behind. As Dr. Gibbs spoke about the second chances, that second chance program. So I want to thank you all for sharing, and we have some additional things that we know that we can go away now and add and think more on so that we can have a policy that is more comprehensive and meets the needs of all citizens. So I want to thank you again and travel home safely.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and we trust that you will have a wonderful night, and we see you again at our next town hall meeting. Have a good night. God bless.